Good morning, everybody. So today we're going to be going through a setup account of Aergo. Like I said, we're trying to open these trainings up to a little bit more exposure. So I'm going to break this down into a couple different variables. Variable one being signing up for the account. Variable two being actually getting into the account, running a couple reports, and then variable three being using it on a higher level and focusing on how to make it more valuable to your profit center. So before we get started, guys, the first way and the first access point to get there is to go to Aergo, and that's AERGO .terradatum, and that's TERRADATUM.com. Once you go in there, that's going to bring you up to a page. Now, remember, we're signing up for an account, so I'm going to build this out as if I was building it for the first time to kind of just keep you on the same line. So once I go in here, I'm not going to use my primary account, but I am going to go ahead and use a built-out account. And I'm going to call that Brian AERGO. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and sign in. I apologize, I'm trying to sign in here. I need to actually go down to the bottom here and press don't have an account, sign up. Fill that out. Okay, so once I'm in here, I need to verify my email. Let me do that real quick. So you're going to get an email that looks just like this. You're going to click on that email address for verification. It's going to say all good to go. Press next. And we're going to go back to my mystery one here. So now we are in the system. This is what's happened after I've verified my account and gone through the system. I need to find an MLS that matches mine. So in my case, I'm going to use GetPar MLS, Greater El Paso MLS. Once I select it, I'm going to click on Add MLS. And here I'm going to type in my code. We'll see if it takes me twice because I've already had an account built on this profile. Hopefully it doesn't mess up my entire account, but I would press save. Once I press save, let's try it out. No, it's not going to work for me because I already have one. So what I'm going to do, guys, is give me a second. I'm going to shift over to my actual account, and that way you go. But basically, from here, you would press save. It would find your profile. Once it finds your profile, then from there, then you would go ahead and you would verify that profile. Now, there is a rule of thumb here. You do need to log out of the account and then log back into the account for it to actually start registering information. That's just a trick that Josh Smith kind of taught me from up in Cruces, that it wasn't working until you reloaded the account. So keep in mind, once you've added your MLS, log out of the account completely, possibly even go up to your top and press your history and clear your history, okay, in order to make sure that you have maximum access, okay? So let me swing back over to my actual account. So this is an account that's actually been built out, and as you see in my settings, I have my MLS already built out here. Same thing, GetPar 4764 primary, and then it goes over what information, and I can get rid of that if I wanted to, and then I can go in and clean up my profile and stuff like that. Those are things that are good ideas to do, just if you're going to use the marketing aspect of. So basically from that method, what's going to happen next is we are now going to go back out to the account. So we are now in our account and we are looking at what is my entire MLS. Now, what this means is this is looking at every aspect of what the Greater El Paso Board of Realtors is giving me as far as data. So as of today, based on a month over month, I have 1,000 sold units for $203 million in volume, with under contract units 1,353, 283 in volume, and then so on and so forth through new listings, off-market listings, and then months of supply. Okay, now this is the where this becomes very valuable in the fact that as the months of supply builds up, you will add more value into the indication. Okay, now the first part is this is your search criteria. Now this is going to be able to search by county, by city, by zip code, by subdivision, and by school district. Now, these are the variables that are it's not as detailed as you might get into where you're trying to find something based on a specific type of property, square footage, bed, bath, but it is breaking it down based on the items that people would want to live in, right? On top of that search, you also have the ability to use this search, which is a polygon search. So let's say instead of using a specific county, city, zip code, or subdivision or school district, I wanted to just pick out what I actually want in area. What I would do is I would select either a radius tool, a rectangle tool, or a polygon tool. So let's say I wanted to define just out northeast, okay? So basically I'm going to take it from the state line here, swing over to what I know is basically northeast, right? And I could zoom down to a specific if I wanted to. But now I've delineated that I don't want the entire MLS. And if you'll notice, when I finished that polygon, up here it gave me a specific based on latitude and longitude of my polygon. So now I've defined that only 79 units have sold in what I classify as Northeast El Paso. 130 units are currently under contract. 93 units are currently in new listing volume. And then we have off market and then months of supply. Now, this is valuable because especially when you're dealing with neighborhoods or areas that may have a really good street and then a really bad street. I use 79925 as a very specific area code or zip code because if I just said 79925, 79925 is actually a pretty good neighborhood, but there are certain parts where streets change and school districts or boundaries of school districts change that the complete market value adjusts. Okay, and when I say school district, I mean by high school district. Okay, so these things can change the value, whereas Eastwood may draw a bigger value, whereas maybe Hanks will not. This is something that's very reasonable and has a lot of detail in that. But because of those reasonings, that's why you can not necessarily just use zip code as an area code, as a detail. Let me just give you a for instance. So if I take this and put it at 79925, that's a great area or a great zip code, and it has a lot of things, but this also feeds two high schools, of which those two high schools have different value ranges based on desirability. Okay, so guys, this is very important, and this is why if you know your neighborhoods, you can break this down even tighter based on just zooming in, and you can break it out if you know those boundaries, and those boundaries change on a yearly basis. And like I said, you can look at the entire school district, but in this case, you would want to be looking at specific properties and where those properties are broken up into high school district to define value, because 79925 is a great zip code, but one side of 79925 is higher value than the other. Okay, so something you might want to break down, kind of, give an idea. Another one that is very big, especially in El Paso, is Tierra del Este. Okay, everybody knows that Tierra del Este is a massive subdivision. Okay, encompassing basically a 10 mile, or excuse me, not a 10 mile, a 3.5 mile by 4.5 mile basic square. And the reality is that that area has a lot of different valuations from the very low end to very high end, and with some kind of in between stuff as well. So looking at that as an entirety would not be an accurate model. You would need to break that down even more. So next step, we've gone through the search criteria. The next is search type. So if I click this down arrow, I have select all, single family, manufactured home, townhome, modular home, condominium, duplex, and quadplex, as well as triplex. This would break down if I'm looking at everything, or if I'm trying to break it down a little bit more specific to the type of home that might be relevant. Next category is your time frame, monthly, quarterly, last 12 months, last 30 days, and last 90 days. This doesn't offer for a custom search, which I would like, but at the end of the day, it does break down most of the primary points of what we would need. Now, the next one is based on what you were looking for as your comparison. Okay, if you'll notice right here, it says 2 months with a 15% change. Basically, that change is based on, in this category, what was the previous month. Now, I could say same period last year, or I could bring this back, and if I change it to year or 12 months, I could once again, now if you'll notice, once I change it to 12 months, this grays out. If I change it to last 365 days, this one allows me to do same period last year instead of previous 365 days, which in essence are the same thing, but at the end of the day, it will break it year to date instead. Now, if I go back to my last 30 days, okay, I can look at, once again, previous 30 days or same period last year. So you'll notice when I change that, these numbers will change. So right now I have a 15.2% change from the previous 30 days at 2 months of inventory. If I change that to same period last year, I have a 48% change from last year. So basically, I've had a huge drastic change in the amount of inventory from last year's the same dates to today. And that's the point here, is that if you use this number can change dramatically from point to point. Now, these really come into play with this item right here, but they also come into play when you start looking at these tabs here. Now, that's what we're going to be going over in class 2 of Aergo, and this is going to be a 3-part class. So part 2 we'll be talking about the secondary indicators, the trends, and the KMI detail, and that is key metric index, okay, or key metric indicators, excuse me. So guys, these are things that I will show you in our next training, so tune in for the next training, just a moment.